Welcome back once again, ladies and gentlemen, to the World Championship Series Global Finals. We just had a very long series here as we continue our show from Burbank, California to find the next WCS Global Champion. We are about to have our first player eliminated. I'm Nathanius, joined on the couch by Todd and Pig. Well, we kind of had a little bit of a chat about that last series. Things got hectic, to say the least, between Neeb and Rogue, but America triumphed, and now it's time to see if, if Norway can claw their way back in this lower match, because it's going to be quite a doozy.
It's going to be tough, man. Stats is a really hard opponent. I mean, you know, it's weird to see Stats here in the losers match, in the elimination match so early. I don't think anybody expected this. All the other people I was talking to were saying he's a shoo-in to win the group or at least get top 2. Now to be one series from elimination is very surprising. But that being said, it's still Protoss versus Zerg. It's a matchup he's great in. I'm feeling pretty good about Stats' chances on this one.
He's Mr. Consistency himself. Made top 4 at BlizzCon last year. He's had a hell of a year. A lot of good results. He's not supposed to go out here, so it's going to be, I think, a huge underdog here in Snute going up against a Titan in Stats. Like Stats historically is 3-0 against Snute, who's never beat him. It's going to be tough, I feel, for a Norwegian player.
Would it be fair to suggest that Snute might have thought if he were to drop his first series that he probably would have ended up playing against Special and just kept practicing versus Terran?
For sure. Like I spoke with him and he told me like he was not confident against Protoss at all. He prioritized Terran, and which I think is smart. It's the right way to do it. Like he would most likely have to be 2 Terrans to come out of the group, but now he's in that horrible position where he has to play Stats today. Like I thought originally they were going to have to play Sunday, but no, they play today.
And as you can see here are the group standings so far. Of course, Special leading with that first victory, and then TY defeating Snute. So Snute and Stats will have to fight for their lives in this tournament now in this next best of 3. But yeah, that was the first thing that I thought of. It was like, that was a pretty nice upset by Special.
It really does throw a spanner in the works for Snute. You know, now he personally was saying, he was, like Todd said, he's been practicing a lot versus Terran. Versus Stats, it's a long shot. What my hope is for Snute, as someone who I think, you know, I've always looked up to for many years as a player, is that he channels that lack of expectation on himself, and he says, let's go in here with some riskier strategies. Let's try some timing attacks, some all-ins, maybe have some throwbacks to 2015 in China when he took down some top Korean Protoss champions at the time when no one was expecting it. Same way here, I think a lot of people are saying Stats on paper looks a lot better, but Snute could definitely bring out some very powerful strategies. He's just got to be unafraid. He has to take some risks.
Definitely not going to be an easy match, of course, as we prepare ourselves for this series. Stats has been a monster in Snute. We talked a little bit about this over the course of the WCS circuit this year, and a little bit at the start of today's show, is that Snute, we know he's a very strong player. We know that he's got the history. He's made a lot of money in his StarCraft 2 career, but this year was not the year where he was the player making all of the headlines in the foreign scene. Yeah,
he definitely is speaking at the right time, I would say. He came back on form during the last WCS circuit tournaments. And Pig was saying, like, historically, like, Snute he showed good things in the past against Protoss, so even though it's not necessarily going to be his best matchup right now, if he can, you know, somehow channel like all of his energy, if the Twitch chat gives him all their power, maybe somehow we can see some good games from him. I'm not sure about taking the risks, though. I would say maybe he finds inspiration from Rogue, who, despite losing, showed a lot of great things, and maybe plays a bit of more of a patient game, you know, with like the ultimate armies, in which case he could be able to outdo Stats, who's still very good in that late game as well himself.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Pig?
Very curious how Stats is going to play the series. He's a player who traditionally was an absolute god of ground-based play. Incredibly strong Protoss versus ground-based player. But of course, Oracles are the hot thing right now. Is he going to go for some mass Oracle play? Is he going to mix that in there? That's a big question, and that's a lot of what is going to decide how Snute approaches the series. So the first game is going to be very decisive.
If Snute's strength is the late game, then we probably wouldn't see Stats try to push for something like what Neeb ended up getting into against Rogue, right? Nothing similar to that.
I don't think he'd aim for it, but if the game goes there, Stats will be comfortable going there. He's a guy, you know, back on Newkirk Precinct, these big maps, he'd often end up in that late game. At the start of the year at Katowice, very comfortable playing that late game stage.
Yeah, and as we just wait for the players to ready up to get this, Todd, any other thoughts on this matchup? Anything in particular that stands out to you about Stats play?
Yeah, he's good in every stage of the game. So I do hope we get to see some late game between these two, because I think it will be pretty epic as well, as we just saw last series. It's always nice to see some of those longer games.
That does seem to be where Snute's strength lies. It's time to find out if he can keep himself in the running to make it to the top 8 at BlizzCon. It's time for Snute versus Stats.
Yes, and those guys on the couch doing a great job. I'm Jeff Control Robinson, joined by Mr. Rotterdam here. How are you doing?
Fantastic job, even.
Are they doing a fantastic job? I didn't want to. Okay.
I forgot about Apollo already.
Well,
No,
he's gonna have a way to come back. Apollo's been walking around. He's a good guy. We got a great match for you guys here with Mr. Stats on shot there, joined by Snute Walker over here from Star Wars. This is going to be a tough one. Both these guys, I think Snute put off a little bit by how, I want to say summarily he was put down in his match. And then Stats, I have to imagine, did not envision facing elimination now. That's got to be crazy for him.
It is crazy. It's just not something we expected. Stats is one of the top dogs coming into the entire tournament, but it's not over yet. We've done this before in the past. Like, oh my god, they're taking over. All the favorites being eliminated, and then actually they still both advance. But this is going to be one hell of a series for our foreigner, that's for sure.
It's going to have to be down in the lower left-hand side, facing probably the best Protoss in the planet of Earth. Actually, it is the best Protoss. It's Stats.
In the middle of the planet.
Not even facing this guy. It is this guy.
And over here on the right top side of Mac Depot, we're looking at the main base of our Norwegian Zerg player representing Team Liquid. It is Snute.
And it is time. It's time to see what we can see from Snute. That first series, you know, it really wasn't that bad. It's just that TY is that good. Snute had some long games, some good battles. He had his moments. That last game in particular was really strong, but we kind of talked about this. TY very comfortable in the late game of TVZ. So for Snute, who holds himself to the highest standard, which I think is amazing, and part of the reason why he's one of the highest earners as a foreigner, you know, he's not going to be satisfied with that at all. He's not going to come away from that saying, well, at least I put up a good fight in that 0-2.
Nope, nobody wants to go out at the global finals after 2 matches, and no matter who you play, I mean, TY and Stats, there is no shame in losing against those guys, but you still want to have a different result. And we know that Snute can be capable of making a different result, but it's tough, man, and I had the same talk with Snute as Todd had as well. Todd said it on the couch. Spoke with Snute a little bit. He's not confident in this matchup. He's not feeling Zerg versus Protoss. He really had his hopes, and when it comes to advancing out of this group, everything was about his Zerg versus Terran. He really felt that he could have potentially beat both of them and then still make it out of this group. Playing against Stats was not part of the plan, especially not on day 1 with elimination on the line.
No, it's going to be tough. Now, Roddy, you're a very active player of these games and these maps. So what do you think about ZVP on Mech Depot? What are some of the things we should kind of look out for here?
Yeah, I mean, we just saw 51 minutes of it, right?
Yeah.
It can definitely get to that scenario. But if there's one thing that I truly love from Zerg players on this map, it's a Zergling heavy playstyle with multiple bailing drops. We saw Rogue do it, but in a much later phase in the game, right? When you have 4 bases, 5 bases, I really don't mind it if Zerg players delay the attack a little bit and try to do it a lot faster, because it's really hard early on to defend against multiple angles of bailing drops. Now, we do see a Stargate going down already, and a Stargate in general is a good answer. But I would be sad if this would discourage every single Zerg around the world. Like, all right, we can do it. It's like, just don't do it in the obvious spot, right? There is always something out there. Other than that, I think we can just prepare ourselves for a macro-oriented game. But I don't think as macro-oriented as the last one, even though we are watching Snute. But that was pretty unique.
Well, I agree. I mean, you can't even predict that kind of game. That's a once in a, not quite lifetime, I'd say once in every 1,000 games or something crazy. Anyways, this pylon block is going to be a moment of annoyance, if you will, but that just buys some time. Oh, he actually goes for the snipe, doesn't quite get it. Lings are going to evacuate here, but otherwise a decent start for Snute.
Yeah, those are the small things. That's nice when it goes your way, though, because if you end up losing that drone, or if it gets blocked and then you lose the drone, you're like, oh, come on, you know, like, not right now, because you know that just came down to a single second. So even though that was minor, decent for Snute.
Well, I mean, it's just one of those things where we see from these world-class players at this stage is just, did that do anything much? No, but what if Snute starts to buckle in? You know, what if he did pick off the drone and starts to really stress? You talked about lack of confidence. Well, if you can deteriorate that mental state even further, you can get a very quick best of 3 under your belt. Whereas if you give Snute some confidence, by the way, if, like, let's say something goes his way in this match earlier or often, all of a sudden, Snute can actually be the kind of guy that beats his stats in a best of 3. And we see the best Protoss on planet Earth go out 0-2. in groups.
It's fun as well that I think the second map in this best of 3 is Catalina once again, which is just odd, right? Normally the pros don't love Catalina that much. When it comes to PvZ, neither player likes it particularly much. It's normally one of those maps that's supposed to be vetoed. Look at this as well. Second Stargate already going down for Stats while still being on 2 bases. Of course, we just saw very heavy Stargate plate coming out of Neep, so this is not shocking. But the second Stargate before he even tries to go up to 3 bases.
Do you think Phoenix variety?
No.
Still Oracle?
I think Oracles, Void Rays. I mean, I'd love to see Phoenix, but it would be very unlikely. I think he would struggle a lot with heavy Zergling styles.
Okay. A lot of people going for this thing here where they kind of poke with some number of adepts and then use that as almost an anchor for these Oracles to do their damage. And you can see it being felt here. The Spore Crawler not quite getting down. A Queen is a loss. And the Lings did evacuate, but a few lost there as well. So a nice little move here from Stats. Not going to break the game wide open, but it's a nice start.
I think there is a Void Ray on the way. No, it's a Mothership Core that's going to keep this Nexus safe. As 4 Zerglings is simply not enough, but at least Snute gets a decent scout off. The only thing I truly love to see Snute scout is the main base. I don't think we have Overlord speed, so it's going to be incredibly tough for him to scout that there is a second Stargate.
And it's kind of funny because we know Snute as the kind of player that I think very often won't scout that because it doesn't matter. For him, the first few minutes of a ZVP and ZVT feel like fairly scripted for him. Like he's going to receive your harass, usually keep himself fairly low tech. We do see that lair morphing there, but then just go on a heavy Queen and Ling kind of defense while pumping the drones. He's mastered that. A lot of Zergs have fallen off because that is kind of the determining side of whether or not you're going to be a good Zerg, is knowing when to use your larva for more drones or more units. Snute's very good about that.
So, I mean, economically, it's definitely not bad, as that Nexus was a little bit on the later side for Sets, because he got that second Stargate before the Nexus. It's not ultra late, it just feels a tiny bit later than it can be, and it normally is. So Snoot still up 8 workers, Snoot going up to 4 bases. We do see Stargate number 3 going down, but soon Snoot is going to realize that this was not just the 2 Oracles that we see so often that are meant to force out a Spore and get a couple drones. It's way more Oracles. Maybe he already saw 1 or 2 fly across the map. He's absolutely going to spot it now. How many Queens do we have in the main? It's 2 Queens and a Spore. I don't think that's necessarily going to be enough, so Snoot needs to bring a couple of extra Queens over.
Very cautious play here from Stats, so a lot of Protoss would jump on this. He's going to get the 1 Queen there essentially for free. Another one's made itself exposed. There's just the 1 Spore Crawler, so a lot of Protoss would go way more aggressive. Here we go. He's going to jump on top of it. Spore Crawler already getting worked on. The Void Ray holding on for a second here, and he will crack this base open.
The Void Ray does get picked up, but there was no creep connecting these bases, so Queens are kind of just coming in one by one. The first Queen got picked off, the second Queen gets picked off, and this is everything that Sats was looking for, and even way more than I think he could have dreamed of. He's like, all right, awesome, let's continue this. I'm in a great position now.
And of all of that, Kevin, too, the Void Ray is the expendable one. You're not massing Void Rays. Maybe you come back around to that later. So you of course would like it to live on, but of those units there to lose, it is the Void Ray. All 4 Oracles intact, 2 more coming out, actually 3 more coming out to join here as well. Now we do see a Hydra Tech starting to take shape for Snute, but after losing those drones, losing the Queens, and losing what he did in the main, and seeing the expansions behind this, he's like, well, I need to rebuild, but also stop that? How do I do it?
Yep, Hydras are actually pretty expensive units. You can't make it. You can't mass them off 50 drones. That forces you to go super all in. Instead, Stats is going to go for the main one more time. Gets the kill on the Queen and both Spore Crawlers. A couple of Hydras will show up right now. Hopefully this is a fight that Snute can take reasonably well. He gets 2 Oracles. And the other Oracle was out of energy. So Snute sort of stabilizes. But again, 9 drones. Again, a Queen went down.
He gets 4 Oracles, but because of how well the first wave went, the damage done in that second wave doesn't make up for losing 4 Oracles. Like, it's still very favorable for Stats. I love the double forge behind this. We saw this earlier in the day as well, and this seems to be kind of a new thing that we're seeing. A lot of times earlier in the meta of Mass Oracle, players were just like staying heavy on Oracle and then going into carrier or something like that. Well, if you give a Zerg the broadcast and time to get adjusted to Stargate play, they can. But if you switch it up back to ground again, that can be just too much.
Stats is in such a sweet position right now. He's throwing down all these gates. Like you said, he's got double upgrades going on.
Yeah.
Snute is on 4 bases. Snute does have 81 drones now, so that looks really good. But Snute doesn't really have an army.
No.
He's got a couple of Hydras out. He's got a couple of Banelings. He does have Baneling speed. So if Stats would go very heavy on the Zealots, he could potentially have an answer for that. But Stats doesn't have to make any sort of silly attack because he's had a great early game.
And we're seeing this now in the top left-hand corner, there's a couple of upgrades for the Lings, but just +1 melee going into +2 versus double forge. It's like, That's not the biggest deal right now, but if it gets to like 2-2 ground units and all you have is +2 melee, it gets really bad very quick.
And that's not enough anti-air. Once again, that queen is going to get picked off. Both spores go down for the third time in this game. And these oracles are actually going for this layer that's morphing into a hive. It will complete, but he's going to cancel it. And it just straight up dies. It's kind of a disastrous game right now for Snute, because now he doesn't even have the tech that he's looking for.
Yeah, I mean, the small consolation and canceling before it dies there. Nice move by Snute. A lot of what? Okay, I was just going to say it's a really... They're just parked at the base of the ramp. They're going to come in here and not get a whole lot done, even blocked by that Archon morphing. Just everything Stats is doing right now just appears to be brilliant. And that is just the 4th base. Doesn't get a lot of probes anyway, so a very expensive attack for not much back there. Now, we've been talking a lot about what Snute has done probably wrong or is having done to him. What can you do to bounce back, Kevin? Is there some hope in this composition he's dealing with?
I would almost say right now you don't want to try to go to Hive anymore. I think it's simply too late to play kind of a Hive game. I mean, obviously, I think all of the choices are going to be wrong because he's just pretty damn far behind. But maybe just massing up a big Hydra, Link, Baneswell, and hoping that Stats somehow messes up. But obviously the counter-argument to that is that there's not so many Oracles with so many Stasis wards potentially. He's going to get Storm. He's going to have Overcharge if he defends. I honestly don't know. Maybe the best thing for Snute is just to sit back and hope that Stats overcommits.
Well, he's committing on some level here. He's moving out past this tower onto the creep. Does not have an observer. He would have to reveal like that to get any of these creep tumors down.
I mean, attacks like this could be a tiny bit risky because you don't have a Warp Prism right now of your Stats. So what exactly are you doing? Okay, he does have a Warp Prism. Showed up a little late, Jeff.
I do that all the time. It's fine. This army, though... It's a lot of Hydra and Banelings. I actually think if this comes in at a weird angle, you could see Snute do okay here. The problem is he doesn't have a bank. He doesn't have the income. Like, these attacks hurt him way more. They're on equal bases otherwise.
I do agree with you, Joe. Looking at this army, this is not an invincible Protoss army, but Stats is obviously a seasoned veteran. He knows that
he's just feeling it out.
Yeah, he's just cleaning up a couple of creep tumors as well. And he's like, if you really want to come, I've got a few Stasis wards to fall back on. You know, I'm not just going to run into those Hydras and Banes. What do you think I am?
Yeah. And as the game progresses, he gets the upgrades, and like you talked about, he can add Storm if he wants. We can see a Mothership coming into fruition here as well. So he has an answer. It's not like he's going to max out on Zealots and Archons and hope that's the answer, because that would be the mistake that Snute would hope for. Yep. Now, Snute had that Infestation Pit. He is going to go up towards Hive. I was interested to see if we were going to see some, like, Infestors or something, because that is kind of one of the big comeback units for Zerg. You land a massive, amazing fungal and chain it with something that can do something. But no, he's just going to stick on the Hydras, sit on his creep, and get the Hive for something, I guess.
Yeah, maybe he does want to get Brood Lords out, but it's just kind of awkward because his Stats is already getting ready for that carrier phase in the game, as the Observer is showing us as well, with +2 air weapons on the way and Graviton Catapult being researched.
I want to touch on something you said, though, because it's I always, as a caster, feel sensitive about this, but it's like, I feel like every choice Snute makes is somewhat the wrong one because of how far back he is. So when you hear us picking apart, please don't think we're like, we know better than Snute. It's more of a like, man, Snute's in a tough spot. What's the gamble he's going to take to try to get back into this?
Yeah, maybe a bunch of Infestors is indeed the best gamble he could go for. But once again, this main is very exposed. This time I think he's going to lose a couple of production facilities as well, as that Infestation Pit went down. And that's a building you definitely want to rebuild. Because if you just sit back without Infestors, you're never going to get the job done. Maybe you can get a Surround there, but Storms are there as well to keep these Archons safe. And Stats is putting on a clinic here.
Absolutely. I mean, this is what's remaining of the Hydras. They're going to show up and actually liberate the main base, but even then, Stats pushes forward with this army that's like uniquely strong against what he has left, which is Lings and Banelings. So again, Snute just between a rock and a hard place. I would say that one of the ways Stats can really close this game out, he's going to transition to carries, as we can see here from our wonderful observer, would be to take another like 5th and 6th base. There is no I feel like there's almost not too many bases for a Protoss in this situation, when it's very clear the Zerg cannot move out. They just can't.
Yeah, that's true. He does have a 5th base on the right bottom side, but he could definitely go up to 6 as well. And just expand towards Snute, right? You've got plenty of Stasis wards to fall back on. You've got carriers on the way now. And you know Protoss is in a really good position when they're getting 3 carriers, but also getting 3/3 for that ground unit.
Yeah, why not?
Just because.
I haven't forgot about you guys down there. You know?
It's like Archons want to live too, right?
Like, he did all the work to get us here. It only makes sense.
You guys deserve a little power up as well.
And here we go. But keep that overcommitment phrase in your mind, as Rotterdam was talking about, because, you know, if Stats throws us all away, it can snowball a little bit, and there's some units getting thrown away cheaply. The Lings can go for the surround. They do get these Archons. Not bad, or as Sarah would say,
It's nice.
It's nice.
The problem is there are still 19 stasis wards in the bottom. So where you normally as a Zerg hope for like maybe
Let's
I can
go!
yeah, maybe I can get the wraparound, maybe you can flank. Like no, actually you can't because this army is incredibly well protected, even if it's all the way in the right bottom side of the map.
Good activity there, though, sending out the individual links to trip those stasis wars. There is just so many of them that they're going to have to do that for a while.
Because the oracles, you know, often after the oracle phase in the game, oracles are supposed to die eventually. And there's supposed to be 1 or 2 left. But these oracles never die. They kill three times the main. They kill an infestation pit and a whole bunch of queens, and they're still alive.
The stats has like the perfect amount of probes, by the way, too. 80. Maybe you can argue for like 75, but it's just a great amount of money coming in. It's not taking too much of your army supply up. But I think it's time, Stats. You've cornered Snute. You beat him around. You battered him. He still is just on Hydras. He's starting to get 3 Broodlords out just now. Some late game upgrades. There's the +2 range attack when you're finishing up 3-3. I mean, what are you waiting for? What is the big final sign here?
I'm not exactly sure. I mean, Stats must absolutely be aware of how far ahead he is. He's getting 6 more gateways, so maybe that's going to be his moment. Where he's like,
hey, look
well,
at Dark Shrine, by the way.
if we go for a big fight, I want to make sure I can wipe in at least 14 units at once while building 3 carriers at home. So maybe that's it. Or maybe it just feels like, you know, I'm going to keep you on 4 bases forever, and then it's going to be incredibly easy for me to win this game.
Well, you know, another kind of funny angle about this is the elimination match. So Stats.
Yeah, you don't want to take risks.
You know, we were talking about in that TY series, you take a shot at him. It looks like he could have been reading a nice book on his back porch or playing for a potential prize of, you know, $280,000 first place. But then you take a shot of that Stats going into this one. He was sweaty. He was looking up at the sky. He's exasperated. That's a guy who's been sitting for the last few hours worrying like, hey, I came to this BlizzCon to make a fortune. I'm one of the absolute best. What if it goes away?
Yep.
But in this game, he knows that's not going to happen. So why not? Take your time.
Yeah, I absolutely can't blame them with a potential first place finish of 280,000. And Stats could win this entire tournament.
Yes, he absolutely could.
That's not crazy at all. So you don't want to do anything silly here. You don't want to throw away the game with your tournament life on the line already in this elimination match. And he's just playing it incredibly safe. And we would love to say Snute could do this, Snute could do that. Snute is getting 8 Infestors. Now, if there is one universe where Snute can somehow turn this game around, it is with Infestors, the best Neurals, the best Fungals, and some static defenses. But when we say the chance is less than 1%, we mean it.
Yeah. You know, I think that last game, the beautiful game between Rogue and Neeb, was an interesting display of what's almost, it's not quite misleading about Infestors, but what's so tough about them. At one point, you know, Rogue had half of Neeb's army neuroparasited, but it's hard to neural parasite and then control them effectively because they don't immediately start attacking the right things.
You mean in the final fight?
Yeah, in the big fight.
But he lost so many. It was just the engagement, I think, why he lost. If that would have happened in the middle of the map, as Snute knows, he's just pretty much dead in this game. GG, Stats takes a 1-0 lead. Off the back of some very solid Oracle play. There's no other way to put it. I think the Oracles kind of just sealed the deal for him in this game. But yeah, I think that Rogue Neeb game, so many Infestors were stuck on the ramp, you know? Like if they fight in the middle of the map and all the Infestors can come at once, you can Neuro a lot more.
Yeah.
But here it was like Neural dead, Neural dead, Neural dead, and they all got stormed. It was just painful.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it's like the opportunity to have the mega situation. You have to say like 9 ifs before that and a couple of ands, and it's like, all right, so you're starting to describe a pretty, it's crazy. Anyways, enough about that. But in this game, we see Snute unfortunately dealing with the reality that his worst fears have come to shape here. He was thinking his ZVT would get him beyond this group. He's facing Stats here in the first elimination match. And that's, keep that shot in your mind, because that's what I'm talking about. Stats does not look like a calm and feeling great kind of guy. He's like, holy cow, I got to beat somebody after this too, and I'm not sure I can now.
Now, that's of course 2 days from now on. Stats looking very good after game number 1. Game 2, if I recall correctly, it's going to be played on Catalina. And I'm just thinking right now, if I'm Snute, right, and this is not the matchup that I wanted to play. This is not where I wanted to be with my tournament live on the line. Do you roll the dice and do you go for some sort of a Ling flood? Do you do anything super wild?
Yeah.
Then again, I feel like almost all the Korean Protoses and guys like Neeb as well, they almost always open 1 gate, fast expand Stargate. And the Stargate is so damn good defensively because what shoots up early on, unless you want to put Queens in Overlords, but that just arrives too late. Like, I don't even know how you're supposed to, quote-unquote, cheese Protoss right now as a Zerg.
It's very tough.
Yeah, maybe proxy hatches or weird stuff like that.
It's kind of gotten to that place. And I feel the nice thing, too, is we have this amazing BlizzCon tournament. We're going to be really excited about the play here. These are the best players in the world, for sure. some of the most red hot. They've worked really hard to get here. But after BlizzCon is a massive switch in the game. We have some huge unit changes. We have some huge balance changes. And, you know, some of these guys that are going to have to wipe their tears with a $14,000 check will go ahead and be able to raise their head and get to work on that new patch.
We'll see if Snute can bring it back here in game number 2, or if this is going to be the end of our Norwegian Zerg, who once again had a great year of StarCraft. Kind of low-key, we didn't hype him up too much during the circuit events, but he was always there collecting those points, and then obviously at Montreal, he had his best run. And he had a very good run at Valencia as well, back-to-back finals, right?
Absolutely.
For Snute.
Yeah.
That was actually super good.
All right, guys, we're going to get into game number 2 here at the 9 o'clock position. Pause just a moment. We'll get into those player introductions in a second. I'm going to ramp it up for you guys, too. I'm really feeling it.
A crazy one, Jeff?
No, not here. It's professional time.
No, I just meant crazy energetic.
Oh, sure.
Crazy passionate.
Just all shaky and stuff. No, we're not sure what the tech issue is here. But want to give a shout out to all you guys at home. Thank you so much. We've been here the last few days getting ready for this. This is as exciting for us as I'm sure it is for you guys. It's the celebration of StarCraft. It's just absolutely amazing and a huge honor to be here. We hope to perform and entertain you guys on a level that you deserve. And these players, I liked your tweet earlier, Kevin. You were talking about this, and it's so true. The first few games in particular of today felt like championship-level series and games, which you're not always guaranteed, by the way. I'm not going to name names, but we have had some series at BlizzCon where it's like, ooh, you phoned it in. You're just here to get a check and go. And that, you know, to each their own. But for me and you and others as a fan of StarCraft and wanting to see this, today's been a good day so far. I'm excited.
It started off great. I think the first 4 matches, or 5 technically, you know, with Special versus stats going to 3 games. I love the way that Special approached the series. You could see that's a man with a plan. And then I really don't mind whether the plan works or not. You know that he tried, and this time he actually succeeded to take out a Titan-like stats. But that's just great to see. That's kind of what we expect to see as well at the biggest tournament of the year. And then that second series, even though Snute didn't take down TY, just amazing games all around. You know, whether you're Protoss, Zerg, or Terran, you watch those games, you see 6, 7 bases, you see all the units you could dream of. And that's just the cool stuff. That's what you hope to see here.
Exactly. And I love to, we don't quite have a live audience here just yet. We're going to be moving to Anaheim for the following weekend, of course. We're going to do everything here. But you know, Neeb just beat Rogue in a best of 3, and there would be a time where there'd be like this shaking energy everywhere. But it's so funny because with Neeb, I think we all halfway expect it. When he beats him, we're like, good. I was hoping you would do that. Who's Rogue? Oh, I don't know. One of the hottest Koreans, certainly one of the best Zergs on planet Earth. And, you know, Neeb's his own cooler, though, too. We get him on stage for the interviews. We're like, you know, what'd you think? And he's like, yeah, the map was good for me. I knew I could do it. We're like, oh, my God.
No, but what I loved afterwards, he's like, well, you could see that it mean a lot to him because he's like, I think if I beat Rogue, I think I can beat all of them. We're like, yes, Neeb, that's exactly what it is.
He's believing in himself.
It's going to be cool. But, you know, we've been here before, Jeff, and I know you're the front runner of this. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves because there's always a chance we get 6 or 7 Koreans in the top 8 in the end. Maybe even 8. I mean, we're not there yet.
Yeah. It's going to be at least 6 is what I would say. I'm thankful for the... It used to be we had a Stefano, or way back in the day, like a Idra, you know, a Huck, some of these guys. Now we have several players to spread it around. In fact, we're even missing some. I do think Showtime was starting to show some of his older form where he's way up there for everybody else. But we do have our lasers still. We do have Cyril, Cyril's the hype guy. He's still the... he hasn't done it yet, but we're all like, you can.
He's the hype pick, but he's the hype pick for all the right reasons. Like, he's not just the hipster pick, because you know that he can do it.
But what if he never does, and the whole time we're just like, yeah, but he could have.
No, I mean, technically, I think he already showed us a couple of times how great he truly is. At Katowice, he just smashed his group.
Top 1 on the Korean ladder.
Yeah, he made it to the finals of Yon Shopping. Like, these are not results like, some people make it sound like he's never won a best of 3 offline. It's like, come on, no. We're going to see him tomorrow, and that's going to be awesome. But for now, we're going to focus on game number 2 between this man, representing Splice, spawning at the left side of Catalina. It is Stats.
And his opponent, can he rally back? Can he begin to believe in himself and put up a fight here from Norway in Team Liquid? It's Snute. I gotta say, we are on Catalina, so for you at home, if you're like, what's so wrong with Catalina? It's not that bad of a map. It's a great map. In fact, I would just say it just has some RNG on it. It's a 3-player map. There's not a lot of those out there, and certain positions can create very different matchups. And the map is, it's good. You got a safe third, an okay fourth. That's usually the way you describe a StarCraft 2 map in terms of if it's good or bad, especially from the Protoss perspective.
You know what I would have loved to see, Jeff? A good old 13-12 speedling all-in on a 3-player map where your opponent scouts in the wrong direction first.
Well, you're getting part of that, I guess, right? Probably not the all-in. He's not.
No, he got a hatchery as well, and it looks all right so far. There's always a chance that maybe Snute morphs his Overlord into a Drop Lord later on. But for now, it is a very standard macro-oriented opening. Stats is going to see this. Stats did drop the gateway on the low ground.
Yeah.
So technically, if you would have gone up against like 12 or 30, you can pull the probes and you can hang in there, but it creates very awkward scenarios. But
Kevin, I'm going to simplify it real quick. In the last game, did Snute lose because he didn't scout the main?
Yeah, I think he did. I mean, I think he took way too much damage. I also think a single creep tumor from the main towards the natural, because he had enough queens technically.
Which you should do all the time anyways.
Yeah, the problem is they were arriving one by one. So one got picked up, then the other one got picked up, and the other ones were just too far out of position. But yes, if he would have had Overlord speed, which obviously changes his entire game plan, I'm not just going to be one of the guys like, oh, he could have done the exact same thing.
50 minerals.
Yeah, that's not how this works, right? They do everything for a reason, and if it doesn't fit in his build, it doesn't fit in his build. But it would have been very useful for Snute to know that he wasn't playing against a 1-star gate, but it was actually a 2-star gate opening, and these 4 oracles showed up a lot faster than he potentially expected them to.
Except for sensor towers. Sensor towers should be in every Terran build ever.
Yes.
I'm going to die on that hill, man.
As soon as they have on 3 bases.
Oh my god. Anyways, this Adept's going to show up. And again, it's just that little bit of shenanigans trying to pick up on, if you see 20 lings leaving the base, if you see 3 or 4 queens, you can get an idea of what you're facing. And it's good. This is what Stats is going to do against everybody. Unfortunately for him against Snute, you're going to see the same thing every time. Snute is very much so staunch about his openings, at least in ZVT and ZVP. I don't see him shaking it up very often at all.
Wonder if he lets it finish. He does let it finish, so Snute does get the surround immediately, and one Adept does go down. I think the second one's going to go down as well, but not before. He takes down 4 drones. That's a trade I don't mind for Stats. 4 Adepts, or 2 Adepts for 4 drones in this phase
You
of the game.
don't hate it?
No, I don't hate it. Like, it's not fantastic, but it's not terrible either.
Okay, well, what do you think about this?
This could potentially be fantastic,
I
Jeff.
feel like this kind of stuff happens because of the 2 Adepts, though.
He's delayed everything a little bit, right?
A lot of times that's the case.
It's 4 more drones, so in total we're looking at 8 dead drones right now, but obviously Stats did invest a little bit. Oh, no Spore in the main yet. Almost out of energy, but almost, Jeff. Doesn't mean it's not going to kill at least 3-4 more drones.
Almost doesn't count. I think it was Britney Spears that said that once. In fact, she made a whole song about it.
Really?
It wasn't Britney Spears, but it's...
Almost doesn't count?
Yeah.
If it was a Britney Spears song, Jeff, I would know it.
It's not her, but it's someone very similar.
Definitely not you.
I'm ashamed. There's a lot of people that are very sad for me right now that I didn't pull that reference more clear and tight, but it's okay. Stats off the back of that is, once again, it's not quite last game where it's like, let's just end this, but he's actually going to change the pace here. We see a Robo, Twilight Council, Forge, all before a 3rd base. This could be for a timing attack. I think he's going to take the 3rd, but have a Warp Prism available for some cheeky harass.
Funny that he did all of this without a Mothership Core as well. Catalina normally kind of a risky map, but maybe Stats looks at Snute the same way as you said it. Like, Snute is just not a link flood type of guy. Snute is not going to drop links in my base early on. He's not going to have a couple of links surprisingly knock on my front door when I shade the Adepts out.
And you know what I think back to? It was that... when did Snute face Polt in the finals of... Was that last year?
Snute versus Polt?
Yeah. It was like a WCS last year. I want to say it was Katowice or something like that.
Yes, in Poland.
Yeah. That year, Snute actually was cheesing some, and it was really crazy. And I feel like, and I don't have the results to back this up, somebody can check for me, but I felt like that was a more successful year for Snute. My bottom line is, when Snute gets really formulaic, I think he does well in the European scene where he's just better than a lot of the people he faces. But when he goes to these big tournaments where he's facing people of equal or better skill, and he has these openings where he's like, I'm going to be kind of behind for the first 10 minutes, but then outplay you in the late game, it doesn't work as well. No, change it up a little.
It's going to be very difficult in this game now as well. Catalina is a map where later on it becomes very hard to do attack. This may look like an open map, but it's not. There are way too many ramps, and there are a couple of weird artifacts in the middle of the map as well. Maybe if he can get a little cancel on these two pylons.
This is awesome.
Yep, I like this as well. The adepts are not here yet. If Snute can get a cancel on this Nexus, that is massive. Obviously, he does have to worry about home. He's going to lose a couple of drones here and there. But I still like this. Getting that Nexus keeps him in this game. Oh, and I love this. Leave a couple of links behind. Get that other probe as well. That's good.
Yep. And he's already pumping Hydras out. I think he has to have had revealed it by now. I almost feel like he hasn't, because I see these oracles just hiding around here. Does not see the Hydra Den. He doesn't even see it. I mean, in 3-base Hydra, Ling, Baneling, Bust, this is where they would have been revealed. I think they're going to come in a second. I don't know. Let me put it out to the audience, but I don't know that it's been shown yet. And if you look at the composition coming out from Stats, I don't think he knows yet either.
I mean, Stats does see the mineral line, and he sees like, hey, you've barely got any drones, and that's just not normal. Because he knows, yes, I did some economic damage, but if I'm playing against a Zerg who truly wants to get these mineral lines saturated, I would see more drones. So I think he knows. Where's that Mothership Core and how many overcharges are available?
I think it's just the one. It's just the one.
Second one.
Baneling is being more afraid on top of this. At least the third base dies here. He has to go. He might actually go for the whole thing.
The Archons are blocking the Zealots a little bit. One Archon does go down, and the other one is super low on HP.
And the Zerglings are going to get the full surround here, and these Zealots are going to melt away. This base is getting blasted wide open. The Archon does fall. And here comes Snute switching things up. He's going to bust in here on Artosis. Pylon exposes just the one gateway and a few actually over there. The Robo goes down as well.
Wow.
And pushing in and maybe equalizing this series comes Snute.
Yep, couple of High Templars still have to morph into an Archon, so that's going to take quite some time. Look at these Hydras go, Jeff. They jump on top of that Archon. They get the Zealot as well. All these probes are going to fall, and Snute.
My man, I'm telling you, beautiful job by Snute. Pulls off the unexpected, and here's the subtle thing, and here's why you guys heard me questioning myself during the broadcast. That Warp Prism harass was going on for a little while. We'd have to like watch the replay and stuff, so maybe just imagine I'm really smart. I think he actually didn't defend it with the Hydras on purpose for a long while to hide that he was doing this build. Like you said, he saw that there's low drone saturation, so I think that's why there was the low ground pylons, the army. He was maybe expecting like a Ling all-in.
Yeah, but if Stats, I agree with you, because if Stats truly knows what's going on, he's like, I actually don't have to harass right now. All I have to do is defend, and then I'm playing against a Zerg with 44 drones, which means I pretty much won the game. So he would have brought everything back, and he didn't. He was still trying to do some damage, probably feeling really good about the game. And man, he must feel so much pressure right now.
That is
crazy, Jeff.
He's leaning. He's like, wait a second here.
Poor Stats.
Adding the numbers together, and if I lose this next game, yep, I'm eliminated. I mean, that's amazing. Huge pressure. Both these guys, it's kind of weird and unfortunate, but with Snute, we do kind of view him as a guy. It's like, yeah, you could go out to a Stats, but a Stats going 0-2 at BlizzCon and to open up this weekend?
After the year he's had as well. This is not a Stats that had a bumpy year. This is a Stats that had the best year.
And who would he have lost to, Kevin? Special and then Snute.
Yeah, that's...
Which, now listen, follow my math, which means WCS non-Korean tournament is actually harder than the GSL, which means... we need to take Tastosis out of Korea and put them back into the circuit.
Who are we sending to Korea?
Well, we'll get Rapid up there, and we'll send him Fear Dragon.
No, Ravi loves the North American scene.
Get him out of here. Honestly, he's been here too long. You know what I mean? It's time to shake it up.
All right, game number 3 is coming up between Stats and Snute, and what an awesome game. Hopefully this is going to be, at least there is so much on the line, and that's going to make it epic regardless. Yeah, he knows that he had a solid start that game.
Are you beginning to believe Snute?
Especially after and Snute knows now as well. He's like, all right, one map, and then I play against the Terran to make it into the playoffs.
Yeah.
For the global finals, even if it's TY again, I still believe that Snute could feel that.
And think of the mind games too. Right now, Stats is like, wait a second. All my research on this guy is that he's never done what I just faced, and now he's capable of it in this best of 3. If it's a best of 5 or 7, you have time to adjust. But now he has one game, this one. And in the lower right-hand side, this guy right here, can he get past his opponent? It is Stats.
Looks so good in that jersey. I love that hoodie. Over here on the left top side, we're looking in the main base of our Norwegian Zerg representing Liquid. It is Snute.
And if you love some of the sponsors that make these guys' careers possible, make sure and reach out to them, give them some love. This tournament itself has some sponsors. We've got you and I have Blizzard to thank. We're going to do that all over the place put on a great show for you guys. Hope you're having a good time.
Now the final map is going to be played on, as you guys can see, Ascension to Ire. I've said this a couple of times today. Even though Protoss players in this matchup in particular, PvZ, they do struggle a little bit here and there. But I think overall, if I'm Stats, I feel a little bit better about this map because it's just such a large map. It takes a very long time for units to run across the map. So getting caught off guard by a 44 drone Hydra Link Bane attack, that's not supposed to happen on a map as big as Ascension.
Yeah.
So I think that works kind of towards Stats his favor, because obviously Stats is still Stats and he's incredibly good defensively normally.
Yeah.
And on a map like this, he would have slightly more time to actually prepare and defend.
Well, that's the theory. I mean, going into this, though, Special just kind of breaks him open and steamrolls him. And then in this series, the first game, all things going according to plan. Snute, I was worried. I'm a Snute fan myself. I know how hard he feels, and to take a beating like that after going 0-2 against TY, that's just decimating. But to come back and to do what he did, to have the gusto to switch it up a little bit in that game number 2 and get those results is amazing. And now here we are.
Stats is doing that one thing that if somebody does that against me, I always get pissed off and like.
You don't like that?
They keep mining and then they stop mining and they start mining.
It's a Brood War holdover. It's so funny because, you know, at the very high level, you tell your drones and workers where to go to double stack it, and if you break it up, of course, it's like a 0.00075 difference.
Yeah.
But what's so funny is nobody has full saturation at that time, so when you're doing that, you're actually not really slowing anything down at all.
I mean, for the people who don't follow StarCraft or watch it all the time, what Stats is doing, he's pretending to mine from a mineral patch and he stops it. He pretends and he stops it. And at that point, Snute cannot use all the mineral patches. It's not a very big deal, but it's just one of these things where, you know, it's almost like showing up. I can do this while not messing up at home, you know?
No, it's when you say not a big deal, that's almost disingenuous because it's like so not a deal at all that it's laughable. Now, these kind of things are a little bit different.
Yeah.
This, too, is not also a big deal, but it's closer to something different. If you have only 1 or 2 lings there, for instance, or that Adept gets there faster, then that can kind of snowball, excuse me, is the term I'm looking for here.
But this was very similar to Mac Depot, just a little bit too late, and obviously Stats didn't want to lose the full 100 minerals for losing that pylon, so the Adept was just going to have to watch and see how that drone would become a hatchery eventually. It's similar to that first game, but I don't think Stats is going to do the same thing as he did on Mac Depot with that second Stargate before going up to 3 bases. I feel that was a one-time special. It worked out great, and we can already see he's switching it up.
Faster Twilight Council.
That is a very fast Twilight, actually.
It is.
Oh! Whoa, that's so big!
Yeah, Link gets in.
There is a Zergling in my base.
Oh, I don't think it saw it. Observer show us.
I think it did.
No, it didn't.
Oh, he saw something.
He totally saw it.
But, I mean, do you know that quickly
Did
that
he
that's
see
a Twilight?
Did he? Did he see it? Snute, you expect. That's the funny thing. I just assume. Like, at this level, I'm like, yeah, I saw it. Totally. On the ladder, I'm like, I don't know. I don't think he did. He's probably pretty stupid. I don't think he did.
All right, there is a Phoenix on the way as well. Now, this Phoenix is obviously going to chase away any Overlords. Well, sad news for you, Stats. Snute has no Overlords. That is really fast resonating glaives after a Stargate.
Yeah.
It's super important Snute does scout this. Snute saw something. Hopefully, he can put the pieces together and realize that there is something crazy happening on the other side of the map.
What a gamble, because if you're going to do this kind of build, you have to add gateways behind this to make it really have some punch.
He spots the other gateways, though. He's probably like...
It's just the one so far. But there's not going to be continued Stargate play, which has been the mainstay so far, and it's going to delay your third. So if Snute starts to pick up on these signs, this kind of timing attack can be put down. Now, on the other side, it could just win the game. So, well, Snute, like, if you just have links, there's the Baneliness. That's the beginning. It's like the first puzzle piece.
Yeah, I like this for Snute so far. We do see the Mothership Core being warped in. Stats is going to try to send a probe out. He's going to go up to 3 bases pretty much right at the 5th minute, which is pretty fast considering the fact that he already has Resonating Glaives halfway done. And he's got a Stargate out. Like, that's all things considered. You know, that's still very fast. 3 bases, 4 Stats.
Here it comes.
He's going to march across the map with, what is that, 2, 4, 6, 7?
You know what?
7 Adepts with Resonating Glaives. Snute needs some units at home.
Look at Snute's vision on the map. It's actually so bad.
I think he knows. Okay, he's gonna see it. He's gonna see the Twilight Council right now. He knows about the Adepts. He's making 18 links. Where are those Banelings,
But there's
Snute?
not a lot of gateways. This is like a super secret. Okay, there are Banelings anymore.
3 Queens. Okay, the Queens can buy a little bit of time. The Banes are morphing on the north side of this battle, but Stats.
Good transfuses.
Okay.
Bought some time here. The queen will die.
That's the first queen that goes down. The Stats can obviously split up his adepts as well, and he's gonna let the first shade finish.
This is rough. He's actually attacking inside the natural here as well. Good split. He's going to spread out so the Banelings can all Mega Destroy them. It will clean up the Adepts here.
That's actually very good for Snute. He doesn't take any real economic damage, and that's the most important thing. Yes, he lost queens, but he didn't lose drones. That is a really good stasis ward, though, for Stats.
Yeah. I mean, you make a really good point, though. It could have been a lot worse.
I like the defense. It was excellent, I think.
You know what is actually scary here for Stats? Is so, like, losing Adepts, not that big of a deal. But you don't have, like, it does stagnate your tech switch. So he doesn't have, like, 7 oracles floating above to do amazing work for him. He doesn't have, you know, Void Rays or something. He's falling back on just more ground army.
This is a tiny bit risky. As Snute is running to the other side of the map, he leaves his mineral lines a tiny bit exposed. And these 3 adepts can suddenly kill a whole bunch more drones than the very first 7 or 8 adepts did. We can already see it. 3 drones go down immediately. You're most likely looking at 6, 7, 8 dead drones here.
It's rough, and this is not good. There's no defense for that other than I would just say that Snute's not going to, there's not a follow-up to this. There's no other scary thing. So as long as he does that, he can make the drones. It slows him down. It's not good, and it has the chance to throw him off, but he's okay.
It was especially sad.
That's my Snute check for the week. I'm like, guys, it's okay. He's still, he's not crying yet.
No, it's totally fine because he's still in the game. It's just, it was unnecessary because he had all the links, and he could have technically taken 0 damage there. Instead, he ended up taking 8 drones. If he wants to go for a big Hydra Bane attack, which I think is already a little bit hard to execute on Ascension to Ire, that just got delayed for another 25-30 seconds, and that's really big, because that could make the difference between 2 storms or not.
You ever seen the movie Dodgeball?
Yes.
Every time you say necessary, I have a huge quote in my head, but it's probably inappropriate for a WCS broadcast.
I don't remember it.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit later.
Are you making fun of me, Jay?
No, it's a good... you're like trying to chant, you're trying to like tease out the quote. Can't do it.
Okay.
Snute up in supply, which is a good spot to be in. Now, we've been talking a lot about Snute's chances and what he's doing to hold on. What about Stats? Stats finishes up with Storm. He's getting charged. He's got okay upgrades. So I don't mean to say that this is like Stats is circling the drain and about to die. He's getting that army. And one of the things about this map, too, is you almost always have to go up a ramp or through a choke to get to a base. Storm, Archon, Charge Lot against Hydraling Bane. Tough thing to do.
Absolutely. Like, I like the defense from Snute against the first adepts, but the second wave did a little too much damage, and I thought if Snute wants to go all out with Hydraling Bane, I think Stats is going to be ready for it. But yeah, we're going to see Lurker, so we're going to see a completely different game than what I thought at first. I do like it for everything you just said, Jeff. Attacking with Hydraling Bane, it's absolutely not impossible on this map, but the only ways I truly love it is when you watch, for instance, Elazer play this map. It's Baneling drops non-stop, Baneling run-bys. Like, he just keeps beating down on that Protoss economy.
Get them to make a mistake.
Yeah, but attacking straight up, it almost never works. You really need to pick them apart here. Small attack, small attack, small attack, and eventually overwhelm them as the Zerg.
And this army wants like a full circumference, so waiting until they take like the 5th or 6th base where you do go to low ground is not good, because then the Protoss has this gigantic economy behind it, and now maybe you're facing disruptors, that kind of stuff. So
you need to beat them down, but instead we're going to watch a completely different game with Lurkers. There's a bunch of Hydras, there are Zealots running around. So far, Snute is doing a really good job in deflecting all these little attacks. He's going to drop Lurkers in the main. Is this Nerd Show or something?
This is Snute shaking it up, showing us that he is one of the hardest workers in the scene.
Oh, the Zealot is going to scout it. Zealot's in the right bottom side. This is a massive scout for Stats. He's going to see these Lurkers. Lurkers will burrow, can do a little bit of damage on these Zealots, maybe kill a few of them. If this doesn't happen, do you know how bad it is for Stats going up a ramp with 4 Lurkers?
Protoss army's rolling over here as well. And it's got some form of detection, but he picks up and gets out of the way.
Snute is going for the 4th base instead, though. I mean, it's like, all right, if you send all your important units to the bottom side of the map.
Pickup.
Oh, these High Templars are very exposed as well.
He gets on top of the Zealots, which are just support units. They need things to cushion for them. The 4th base is absolutely dead. He's on that high ground, so some damage being done over here, but look at the supply. As Todd was saying, look at the supply. Look at it. It's a 30 supply advantage for Snute. He got those Templars on top of it a little bit. Protoss on 3 bases, manageable, by the way.
Absolutely. I mean, that was fantastic for Snute. He didn't even lose that many of those Lurkers. He didn't really take any damage at home, and he killed the 4th base. He's going to try to collapse on this army. There are a few storms. He does have to worry about that Prism, because Stats is one of the absolute best when it comes to non-stop harassment.
And this is pretty huge. He's going to get on top of that. He's going to go after the Lurker Den here. There's only the one Hydra. Like, stop it, don't hurt that. We can't make more brothers. But it will go down. Nice pick off here for Stats. And he's warping more units, but going to kind of decide against
engagement. I think we're going to see a big engagement right now. Stats perhaps a little bit too far forward. I don't really know why he's standing there.
I think we might have seen him lose Zealots to those lurkers just off that. Yeah, it looks like, okay, Stats going to get on top of the space here as well. This is an action-packed game. And again, Stats backed up here a little bit. That fourth base is not being remade except for on that low ground just now. And here comes that concave of Hydras.
Yep, and there are a couple of lurkers as well, so getting High Templars close enough for good storms is hard, but Stats still managed to land a couple of good storms. Got a decent overcharge there as well.
Templar.
Yeah, I feel like this Hydra's army is going to get cleaned up though. They're all so low on HP. The Immortals focus firing the lurkers. Well done by Stats.
Yep, he's able to conquer through that, and the light harass behind us has flipped the supply on its head.
God.
Snute in some trouble. He's down to just 48 workers.
Wow.
He's trying to fuel the war effort, but behind this, losing out on that economy has hurt just a little bit too much. Now, these Zealot run-bys have done great, but keep your eye on them. If you keep throwing away 7 or 8 Zealots and they're not getting the results they need, then it becomes a huge detriment to the Protoss.
The drone count is problematic though, Jeff.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that bad. I mean, 48 drones only, that's absolutely nothing. Snoot's got all the bases. You look at the minimap and you feel like Snute is doing great.
He's
then you
not
look at
making
the
more either, by the way.
and then you look at the work account and you're like, he's actually not doing that great at all.
Yeah, he pushed this game to its boundary. I feel like Stats was a couple of fights away from maybe losing it, but that Warp Prism attack in the main was huge. The constant harass of this base has made it so that it hasn't really served Snute that much at all. And now the armies are still kind of going back and forth, but it's the Protoss army that can endure. It has Storm, it has long-range Immortals, and if you don't rebuild these drones, which again, Snute's still not doing, it's gonna become the death of him.
And maybe Snute just feels like he desperately needs these units right now, otherwise he dies.
He's still not doing it.
But if he doesn't rebuild the drones, he can't keep up. I mean,
He doesn't have a bank.
Stats can start taking really bad fights, and it's going to be completely okay, because he's got 70 probes. He's mining off 4 bases again. He's throwing away Zealots left, right, and center, but Snute has no economy behind this.
I'm starting to feel like a dead Snute is what we're looking at here right now. The game would have to slow down. It just hasn't this entire time. Storm's carpeting the Hydras. Good area, good micro from Snute here, and he is going to chase back this Protoss army, but behind it, that's where Stats has been getting all the work done. Look at those numbers. That's not here, guys. This is a one fight for all intents and purposes for Snute, but behind this, the drones continue to die. There's no bank, and he's dying on the inside out.
Yep, he's got absolutely nothing. He does have a Hydra army chasing down this Protoss army.
Get ready for the storm.
I mean, Stats actually is running super low on the workers. How many storms do we have? Does he have storms here?
Not yet. He can lose the base.
Yeah, but that is problematic. I mean, losing the base does hurt.
Yeah.
Because there are still hatcheries on the other side of the map, but I don't think he wants to lose the base. He's going to try to save the probes. Will Snute be able to get a couple of them? At least Snute does something back a little bit.
The lanes are nice.
No, you can't go up that ramp, Snute. Snute's got to go back right now. He's got to drone up. As painful as it is, he's got to drone up.
And he just hasn't gotten that memo this entire time. That Warp Prism right there has been the Fairy of Death this entire time, just constantly bringing over more and more Zealots that are just ransacking the bases that were supposed to be safe.
I mean, Snute is going to get a cancel on this fort as well. Do you think Stats would know how bad the economy of Snute truly is?
I don't know.
I mean, obviously the main is dry and the natural is starting to run dry as well.
Wow.
Stats got workers, but no bases.
It's the Templar I'm so worried about.
Yes.
It's all Hydra, it's all Ling. A couple of Storms, it's all gone.
He's still making Lings and Banes though, Jeff.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is that Stats has workers, but he has no bases. And Snute's got all the bases, but he's got no workers.
Yeah. These guys need to get together and work it out.
Yeah,
right?
if they would be in Archon, they'd be great.
Yeah. Okay, well this is a weak spot right here, but with that warp in, and this army split up, that's what Snute's got right there. But oh man, if you got on top
but
of
that's
the
still
Templar.
good though. You bait out a couple of storms. These Zealots, maybe that Archon.
Oh, one does connect, and all the Templar but one do go down, but there's just nothing behind that. Even these Hydras are struggling to win at the top end over here. Couple of Archons, couple of Mortals. It's just too much. Supplies continue to plummet for here's Snute.
A couple of expensive units do go down, but Stats is building a Fort Nexus behind this.
I mean, Roddy, he's just pumping out more units. He believes he has to win fighting, and it's just getting smaller and smaller as time goes on.
I would have liked to see him try to delay the fort a tiny bit and just try to at least resaturate your third and your fourth. And I think if he would have been able to do that, I mean, even his third, I guess, is running quite low. He's been throwing away so many units. He's been throwing so many units at Stats. I mean, that got really close for a split second. I was starting to get very worried for Stats, but like you said, he had a bunch of White Templars with Storms available.
And one Baneling killed, I think, 3 or 4 of them, and they made an Archon. Like he got the lucky hit that he needed. It's just he's working with so little from so far behind that it's It's hard. And Kevin, this is a gut-wrenching one because there was a lot of this game where Snute was looking really good. But man, the Warp Prism in the main, the constant harass at the third base, and then the low ground fourth just never worked out for Snute so far. He's not dead yet, guys. I don't mean to... I'm not signing him off, but it's looking... He's the one actually circling this drain now.
Yep, he is definitely in a lot of trouble. I like Snoot's position at one point as well, where he was on 4 bases. He's going to go for the Prism finally.
Get it. It's right over there, man. No, the Baneling's like, guys, over here. Only I have to do that properly. I'd have to be rolling, so I'm not going to... I don't want to dirty
He will finally get it with the Zealots inside of it as well. One Zealot did get unloaded in the end there. He's like, I'm out of here, but he still died. Stats' army is looking mighty, mighty fine right now, though, with all these Archons. Probably has a couple of High Templars to fall back on. And this is what we said in the beginning of the game as well. You got to go up a ramp. I mean, Stats is even taking a 5th base. That just shows how confident he is right now.
Yeah. I mean, those Templar that you just saw that shot of means that you have to attack into it. It would be really bad for Stats to turn this around and try to attack with this army. He doesn't need to. He's got the favor. He knows the army composition of Snute is frozen. He has some idea, perhaps I guess we could guess not a full idea of how bad his economy has been, but he's overestimating Snute right now and playing it smart. So
how many drones did Snute lose in this game? 49. And this has never been a high economic game, so that's a crazy number. I mean, that's nice in Archon and Zealot, but...
we can get that 7 more times.
I mean, 80 against 63 army supply, you can still lose this. If you really mess this up, you can still lose this.
All right. Well, this actually ends up working out, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean,
he baits him forward, storm carpets the entire army, and there is the Protoss. Stats flirted with danger, but is going to pull it out with